Hi, I'm Amy Siegel. I'm ASA's Director of Programs.
And I'm Tina Wiseman, Strategic Planning Specialist. Welcome.
Welcome. We are here for the Root Cause Steering Team Development webinar. And we like to start on time and end on time, so we're going to jump right in right after we close those cameras.
All righty, so today's topics. We're going to review the improvement process, and then today we're going to look specifically at root causes. So we'll be looking at the introduction, the data, and the discussion steps. First, we'll start with an overall review of the process. This sometimes makes us feel really good to see everything that's gotten completed up to this point. As you remember, we did the get ready part. You formed the steering team, set out the task delegation, and then started with data collection. From there, we went into the intro to get everything kind of lined out and kind of get everybody's mindset, and then created a vision for your school. From there, we went into goals, which included the PAIs, or primary areas for improvement, and the SMART goals. And then today, of course, we're going to be looking at the root causes, and this will be ASA's Elements of High Achievement Schools, which we'll be looking, kind of using that as a guide as we go along, and we'll get much more into that detail.
A little introduction on root causes. Root causes are the things that get in the way of achievement. They answer the question, why aren't more students reaching our SMART goals? Root causes may be general and impact all subjects, all courses, all standards. For example, poor attendance, lack of student discipline, teachers lack engaging instructional practices, academic help not available outside of school hours. All of those things, if changed, would help student achievement in general. Root causes can also be specific. They can impact a specific subject, a course, or a standard. So some examples of that: lessons on ratios are absent in the 7th grade curriculum. That would keep us from achieving in the area of ratios. 7th grade math instructional practices don't engage all students. That's targeting the subject math. Extra help does not exist for 7th grade math. Again, that's very grade level specific and subject specific. In general, root causes tend to fall within 7 areas.
The 7 areas that we have kind of looked at over the years, and I think you would agree it does fall into these areas. It will fall into a lack of high expectations for student achievement. We all think we have high expectations, but sometimes over the course of a year, we might do a little looking back and decide that maybe that's not exactly the case. The curriculum rigor. Curriculum is something that we all know has to be minded a lot. We have to be minding the store there. So keeping that rigor in the curriculum and not backing off for any reason. If there's a lack of that, that's going to cause a problem. Lack of engaged instruction. If the kids aren't engaged in what's going on in the classroom, of course, then there's not going to be a lot of good show for that in the data. A lack of frequent classroom assessment. I know probably that there are some eyes rolling about this time, but sometimes we have to admit that maybe the frequent classroom assessments that we're doing aren't exactly meeting very specific needs that we have. So sometimes we have to do kind of just a quick glance check and see what's going on there. A lack of extra help. I know our days are so full, and we have a lack of teachers, paraprofessionals, and different people who could come in and help. And as a result of that, a lot of times just that lack of extra help that could get kids kind of over the hump academically is not happening. A lack of student guidance. There again, the days are so busy. Personnel sometimes is just not there. And so as a result of that, any kind of long range planning, if there's a lack of that, then we do get some kids fall into the gaps. And then finally, the learning environment. If there's a lack of learning environment in a school or in a classroom, that certainly shows, because I know when we do, and looking at our update schools, when we look at the student body breakouts and when they have their conversations, this is a very telling area, because the kids will talk about a lot of times how there is a lack of learning environment. They feel very distracted by different things. So it definitely is a prevalent thing.
So getting into a little more detail on each of these, when we look at high expectations, we ask, do educators, parents, community members, and students expect all students to succeed at a rigorous level? If not, who has lower expectations, and is that okay? Which groups of students do we have lower expectations for? Are the expectations clearly and concretely expressed? If kids don't know that we expect these things from them, they're not going to reach those expectations. And third, are the expectations purposefully communicated to all student groups? So when we start thinking, are some students getting the message more than others? Do our girls hear us having high expectations more than our boys do, for example? Tina?
Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah.
I was clicking and it wasn't clicking back. When we look at the rigorous curriculum, we look and ask, has the entire curriculum been aligned with world-class academic standards? Has it been aligned on paper? Or do we just kind of talk about it passing in the hall that maybe that's something we ought to get done someday? Is it in the actual instruction? And is it in the actual classroom assessment? There again, it's the nuts and bolts, and we have to make sure that it's there. And if it's not, it becomes definitely a root cause. Also, are the students taught rigorous content? And if not, why not? Is there a lack of encouragement? Are there prerequisites? Sometimes, they'll kind of get skipped. And so, and I would always add to this, is there a scope and sequence going on? And so, we have guides, and we have good guides to follow, but we have to make sure that, we don't remove some of the rungs on the ladders for the kids. So, we have to make sure that's in place. Is funding an issue? And there again, I'm sure I saw some eyes roll. Of course, funding is always an issue, but a lot of times we definitely make lots of lemonade out of those lemons. And then a fear of failure. Are the kids, are they afraid to fail? Are we afraid to fail them because we're afraid that, they're not going to want to get back on that proverbial horse and go again? So, all of these different things really can keep academics from moving ahead. And then, do the students and parents have a real-time means for understanding which standards have been mastered? If the parents, we have our own language in education, and too many times I think we take it for granted that everyone understands what we're talking about. And if you say, standards and indicators to someone, you may get met as much with a blank stare as with a nod of the head. So, we have to make sure everybody understands and has that real-time means of understanding.
We also look at engaging instruction. We ask, do instructional practices align with the school's world-class standards? So if we have set our standards, are we really lining up our instruction and how we teach with those world-class standards? Do instructional practices convey high expectations for all students? And we're going to put an emphasis, as always, on that all students. Are there student groups who are not, through our instruction, understanding that we have high expectations for them? Do instructional practices engage all students in learning through attention to student learning styles, student interests, and student learning rates? So in our instruction, we have to look at, are we meeting students where they are and who they are? Do our instructional practices enable teachers to help students who struggle by reteaching content that students haven't mastered before going on to new content? Do instructional practices enable teachers to help students who struggle by identifying students who need extra help or time to master content? And do instructional practices enable teachers to help students who struggle by providing extra help or time for students who need it? So this is a hard look at what goes on in the classroom when we're talking about root causes.
So when we look at frequent classroom assessment, you have to ask yourself the question, are these classroom assessments aligned with the school's world-class standards? And sometimes you have to ask yourself, are they aligned with any standards? Because, you know, I've been in schools and I've been a part of schools where it might be or it might not be, or it might not be consistently. And there again, that consistency is going to be key, as we all well know. Are they used to help the teachers identify instructional strategies, not only that did work, but what about the ones that didn't? Because sometimes what doesn't work is just as important so that you can loop around and see what's going on there. Does it identify the students who need extra help? Or are we just glossing over in the interest of marching on with a calendar? So, you know, we have to stop sometimes and identify those kids. And then are they followed by extra help of some sort for students who did not master the content that is being assessed? There again, you know, that all those things can cause problems.
We're looking at extra help as a root cause. We're asking, are students who need extra help or time frequently identified? Because we know that's a moving target. So are we looking more than a few times a year to see who needs extra help? Are students who need extra help or time actively engaged in extra help or time in activities? I know when I've worked on a grant program before, and we created this really great tutoring program for after school. And what we found is that a lot of the kids who we really wanted in this tutoring program were not, they relied on the bus. And so they couldn't stay after school because they had to get on the bus. So the next thing was, how do we make sure that we can get those kids engaged in that extra time and extra help? That's an example. When we're looking at extra help, we also look, do all students have access to extra help or time inside the classroom? And then do all students have access to extra help or time outside the classroom? We're also looking at, do both low ability and high ability students have access to extra help and time? We can't always assume that our high ability students get everything that we throw at them, and we can't always know, where our low ability students are either. So again, that's some key questions as we're looking at our root causes.
And I think you can tell from hopefully the tone of voice that Amy and I have, we've been in those boats with you, and we understand that. It's real easy for us just to say, well, this is missing and you should have this and all this and that. We don't feel that way. We have been in the trenches along with everybody in schools. And we know that, these are asking some really tough questions that sometimes can almost feel overwhelming. So don't feel overwhelmed, but do take time and really recognize these, because anything that turns things around a little bit is going to start turning that whole ship around. So, we're not trying to just throw all this at you expecting great things to, for you to just stop the school on its heels and then just turn it around in a day. We're practical people. We know these things don't happen, but these are such good questions to raise such good conversations with. And then there again, in the essence of time and saving time and being efficient, if you're really looking at what's going on by having this conversation, then down the road, you can spend good time on getting these things, at least the beginning of them, fixed. And so that's why we We like these. We like the root causes because we know it cuts to the chase. And that's what we need to do. Nobody likes to just sit and scratch their head and wonder what to do. So I know it looks like a lot here, but they're good questions. So
And
keep
this is
moving here.
also, oh, I just want to say, as we move through today's presentation, and Tina's right, this is a lot. As we look at the elements of high achieving schools, these are just things that we know schools who have turned around their data. These are the kinds of things that they're looking at. We're going to help you not just identify these areas through the steps in the rest of this presentation. We're also going to help you prioritize them. So that we know that there, a lot of these things could be things that concern you, but what we're gonna do is like, where do we? The next question is going to be, where do we start? So we're not asking you to take on all of this all at once, but just to start asking questions and look at your data.
So,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. We'll finish up with student guidance and learning environment, and we are inviting you to come up for air at the same time while we go through this. So in student guidance, do all students have an adult at school who is responsible for him or her and cares about the student to the point the student knows it, understands academic and career pathways? And here again, do our adults in the building that are working directly with the kids understand these pathways? Do they meet with students on a regular basis? Will they notice if a student is beginning to fall through the cracks? And will they help a student plan his or her future? And there again, does that adult have no more than 30 students? And there again, I know it just gets so frustrating sometimes, but we all know that we have an effective limit. So, these are just hard conversations, but they're good to have. And then, do all students have a tentative career goal? I mean, we know that we're working with some of you in elementary schools, and I'm going to be a fireman today, and I'm going to be a police chief tomorrow, and I'm going to be an astronaut, and then I'm going to be a cook at McDonald's because I had a good hamburger. But we all know that students from early on, if they have an idea that they'll want a career, that's the first goal, is to get them to where they're thinking about, it's kind of a cool thing to have a career. Do students have a post-secondary education goal that aligns with their career goal? There again, we start teaching them, you've got X amount of time, you want to get in school, post-secondary, you want to get out, you want to become a wage earner. So, we're doing them such a favor by getting them lined out in this as we go. Do they have a savings plan that aligns with their post-secondary education goal? There again, we all know, we've all seen the stuff on college debt, and it's scary what kids, are faced with as they graduate. So we can start very, very early on teaching this whole culture of, responsible thinking and planning and all that. Do all the students earn grades that align with their post-secondary ed goals? They have to have the grades if they're going to be good, good as a post-secondary student, and then good in their position that they'll have. And do all students talk with their parents at least annually about their goals and plans? And there again, that's something that, we find that a lot of, parents and kids just don't talk together a lot. So we want to be sure and figure out some way to do that. And then, do all 6th through 11th grade students have a high school course plan, which of course we know is called the graduation plan, that aligns with their post-secondary education goal? And so, of course, that just goes along with the state's graduation plan.
Okay, and then we're looking at learning environment as a root cause. Does the classroom environment support learning? Is it a safe environment, both physically and emotionally? Is it a quiet environment, free from distractions? Do we have adequate technology to support student learning? We also look at, do parents support learning? Do they hold high expectations for academic success? Do they ensure that their children come to school? Do they talk to their children daily about school? Do they engage their children in completing homework assignments? Do they provide a quiet environment for homework completion? Do parents talk with their child's teacher frequently? And do parents view teachers as partners in educating their child? We're also looking in learning environment and how the community supports learning. Does the community hold high expectations for academic success? Do businesses and school discussions about academic rigor and curriculum? I'm sorry. Do the businesses and schools have discussions about academic rigor and curriculum? And lastly, do community-sponsored scholarships, college visits, and internships exist? All of those can really communicate to students that how their community supports them in their learning environment. So those are, as we said, the ASA elements of high achieving schools. This is stuff that we've gleaned over 20 plus years of working with schools all over the state of Indiana and beyond, as we've worked with redesigning school counseling. And so again, these are questions we hope you'll consider. We hope they help guide you as you get into your root cause work.
Okay, so now we'll get down to brass tacks here. We have the root cause data. Okay, root causes are supported by data, good hard data. So if you have a root cause and you say, you know, we have really poor attendance, you're going to look at specific data and you're going to have numbers and you're going to say, well, 7% of all of our students are absent more than 10 times during the year according to school records. And then, for example, a lack of student discipline. You know, that sounds kind of fuzzy in general, but you've got the data now. 40% of all students are referred to the office for disciplinary purposes each year according to school records. See how that kind of fuzzy root cause where, you know, people say, well, what do you mean by that? Now you've got the cold, hard data. Look at student engagement. Our data, 67% of all students report that instructional practices are not engaging. Where did that come from? A survey. 37% of all students report that they do not complete their homework almost every day. That was also on the survey. So now you can see where all that surveying of students, parents, community, and teachers is all coming into play. And then with extra help, that may be a problem. You know, we don't have enough people for extra help. How do we know that? Because 53% of our kids reported that extra help is not available at school. And 87% of our DF students reported that extra help is not available at school. That's a big number. That's pretty staggering. So schools that improve tend to very carefully identify both the general and the specific root causes for each and every SMART goal. And then they implement interventions to address those root causes. So now, Sherlock caps home on, and we're going to start looking at the data as to why aren't our students achieving at a higher level. There are clues in the data. So when you look through the root cause data reports, you see that those are under 7 different areas. They're under expectations, curriculum rigor, instruction, student engagement, classroom assessment, extra help, student guidance, and learning environment, which we just gave you the whole ball of yarn on all of those as to what those definitions are. There they are again. You're also going to have clues in the data with the report contents. So the survey questions that were answered by the students, the teachers, the parents, the community, plus those short answers that were answered by the steering team. See, now you've got all kinds of data going on here that you could be looking at. Here's an example of a root cause data report. So this is sample survey data for expectations report. The question is overall, or the statement is, expect to continue education after high school. And so you can see the breakdown. Here's the statement as the parents read it, the statement as the community read it, and the statement as the teacher read it. And you can see that all students, 83% of them, agree that they expect to continue education after high school. The parents, right on board, 100%. Why, of course, Johnny's going to do it, and so is Susie and everybody else in the class. The community's saying, I don't know. I'm not that clued in, but, I read the newspaper and all this and that. Look at the teachers. Is there a disconnect between teachers and parents? Yes. And the students fall somewhere in between there. So there again, who knows? And what, you're getting such valuable data coming out of that to start having those conversations about what's going on, what the problems are. Moving on to an example. Oh, excuse me. Is there a possible general root cause in that data? So, okay. So then we look at, and this is the short answer questions that you answered early on. And so this is just a sample short answer data expectations report that Amy and David, through their goodness, all their talent, has come up with to give you all these different reports. These look very familiar to you because these were the questions that were asked of you based on exactly what's going on in your building right now. And I won't elaborate on all the fine little print, but you know those. You know where those reports are. And if not, Amy's going to remind you here in just a bit.
We're going to have a look at opening up those reports in a bit. So, but that's an overview of the data that's available to you and that you're going to use in your work this month. Okay, so looking at the root causes discussion, this really has two steps. The first is individual preparation, and then the second is going to be your steering team discussion. So let's break that down. In step one, the individual preparation, each steering team member will need the root cause data review help sheet, and that I'm going to show you. But just in case you need it later, we're putting it here. It's the tool in step 3 on the VTA process, and each person's going to need several copies of this because there's going to be a lot of scribbling in here. They're also going to need the root cause report summary. This is the tool in step 3 on the VTA process. Actually, I think it's the report in step 3 on the VTA process. And then third, they're going to need root cause drill down reports for student groups identified in your SMART goals. And I'm going to go over where to find those. In our experience, this is a really good time to work off of paper. I know that we're all really used to looking at everything on screens now and not wanting to print and have to deal with all that paper. At least that's the way I am. Tina is paper everything.
Completely opposite, yes. Paper.
Yes. We are totally, but in this case, as you're doing this work in your individual preparation, we find that it is very helpful to print everything out, to get it. I know when I've done this before, my kitchen table was completely covered with stacks of reports that I was going through. I had Post-it notes and highlighters and pens and different colored ink because there's a lot of data to go through. There are several, you're going to have, however many SMART goals, you're going to be looking at root causes for each of those. It can really help to work off of paper in this step. So that's our recommendation, whatever method works best for you as you're going through your root cause data reports and considering your SMART goals. So this is the root cause data review help sheet. And as you see, it's going to list the SMART goals for your school. And I've circled on here, notice that we have in our SMART goals for our sample school, we have grade 5 free and reduced, percent of 5th graders on free and reduced who master algebraic functions. We're looking at grades 3, 4, and 5, free and reduced students who earn grades C and D, the percent who pass math I-STEP. So again, as you notice, we have several of these specific student groups, and in some cases, very specific student groups that we need to consider. And we'll talk about this in more detail, how to look at these reports, and but we really want you to think about as your root causes, not just the general things. All students, have attendance issues, or all students, we really want to look at what's going on with those student groups and think about root causes that would help them specifically achieve those SMART goals. So that's why those are important, and you might want to highlight those or circle those. At the top, you'll see that we have possible root causes, and this is where, as you're going through your reports, if you identify a possible root cause, you write that in, and then you put an X next to in the row of the SMART goal that affects. And then down at the bottom, you put in your evidence. So if it comes from survey data or short answer questions or school records that you have, if it comes from, knowledge of curriculum or whatever your evidence is, be sure to write that in, because the evidence is, as Tina was saying, evidence is important. So that's the root cause data review help sheet. And again, my experience, you're probably going to want several copies of this per steering team member. And then the next area is the root cause reports. So we have the really important ones. When I print these out, I like to go with all questions so that I have everything ready to go. You might, if you're wanting to work differently, we do break down, instead of all questions, you can pull up the report by each of the areas. We also have grade level drill downs. So if we're looking at specifically at the grade levels, that's available. And then student group drill downs. So we can look at gender, race and ethnicity, lunch program status, IEP status, parental college, and typical grades. We can also create a student group, and I'm going to go over when you do that and how you do that in a little bit. So these are all the reports that are available to you from your survey data and short answer questions. Oh, here's this. When you create a student group, you have report options to create. On the first page back here, at the top of this page, there is an option to select just a grade level. So one of our SMART goals had to do with fifth graders specifically. So I could just select fifth graders. In this case, we were showing survey results for third, fourth, and fifth grade students. And then you can select your other
criteria.
Yes, thank you. Characteristics was the word I was looking for. So if we're looking at third, fourth, and fifth grade students who are on the lunch program and have grades C and D. And these were all self-identified by students, so keep that in mind. But it does give you a really good idea of those groups. Okay, so that's about running the report. When we get into using the reports, again, our suggestion is to highlight data that surprises or concerns you. In the drill down reports, note differences between the groups. Ask yourself, could this keep students from achieving in general? And you're also asking yourself, well, could this keep students from achieving one or more of our SMART goals? You're going to fill in the help sheet as you work to prepare for your steering team discussion. And you want to make sure that student groups from SMART goals are addressed in those root causes. Okay.
All right, so then step 2 is the actual steering team discussion. So what you want to do is you want to bring those help sheets and the marked up reports from step 1. So everybody's got a little homework before you meet as a steering team. And then you're going to have ready for the meeting one Instagraph poster for each SMART goal, and then one for general root causes. So you're going to have one for each SMART goal that you have, plus one for the general root causes. As a practical thing, I told you we were practical people. Make sure you have tape that won't peel your paint off the walls. So, you don't want to get in bad graces with the maintenance staff there. So just little helpful hints along the way. And then different colored marker for each person. So because there again, you're going to be doing some marking here on Instagram in a minute. And so you want to have your ability to have that information and have your tools. As my husband always says, the right tool for the right job. In our experience, this can be a pretty long meeting, but it's a good one because there again, you're really getting down to the heart of the matter. And these are conversations that we just don't have nearly often enough. Okay, so here is the Instagraph, your consensus tool. And so the Instagraph is a tool to help you reach consensus on what's going on. So when we look at this one, you can see that you check one, and this one has a specific SMART goal. And that SMART goal is all 11th grade students pass Algebra 1. And so then you have possible root causes. So one person can act as a scribe, or you can do it however you want to, writing in the possible root causes identified by each steering team member. And then once all the possible root causes are written down, and the Instagraph posters are all hanging on the walls, so you're going to have this array. There again, remember, one for each individual SMART goal and then one separate one for the general general root causes. And so then what you're going to do, you're going to start voting. And you see those little colored dots on there. Each steering team member will have 3 votes per Instagraph. And so those votes can be used on 3 different root causes. They can be split between 2 root causes, or if you feel really, really, really intense about something, then use it on 1 root cause. So, you do that however you want to. But what that will do, as you can easily see, is it's going to just start tallying the votes as you go along. Plus, we all love a good graphic organizer, and there it is. So you've got this nice visual as you go along. Oh, and she's giving us more.
Yeah, sorry. I just realized that, yeah, we put this slide. Everything Tina just said is on this slide. And because we wanted, if you were going through this later on just looking through the slides, we wanted you to have a reminder of what it is you're doing with that Instagraph. So there's the method.
And we kind of do this in our sleep. And we try not to overlook that fact. So there's your method, there's your direction sheet. So we'll go ahead and skip that. I think I read all that, didn't I? Yeah. Okay, and then in your post-voting discussion, there we go, consider the possible root causes with the most votes. And so then with all those colorful dots, which one, looking at all those, which horse was in the lead there at the end, do these root causes meet the rubric criteria? Should other root causes be considered to meet the rubric criteria? And does the team have consensus on the root causes for each SMART goal? So after that voting is complete, you're going to discuss the root causes. And then you're ask yourself these questions. All right. So then we look at the rubric. And so this is what, once you send it all in and submit it, this is what I'm going to be checking for to make sure that you've had good coverage on it and everybody is on the same page. So I'm going to be looking for a significant number of root causes that are specific in nature, that they impact a specific subject, course, standard, and/or student group identified in an individual SMART goal. And Amy will show you in a little bit. And this sounds kind of a little bit foggy probably at first, but when you see it as a visual, you'll see just how smoothly this all works. The root causes associated with each SMART goal holds high promise for impacting the associated SMART goal if the root causes are successfully addressed. I've always said, the visual is you've got the data, you've got the root cause that comes with it. If I could eliminate that root cause, would that data just not be able to help itself, but to move? And so that's what you want to do. Does the root cause clearly state the situation or practice that interferes with that individual SMART goal? Don't be too broad. If it's too broad, it may belong on a general root cause list. But you want to zero in. Amy always says I use my laser striker. You want to laser in on that because you don't want to waste time. You want it to hit exactly where it needs to hit. And then at least one root cause addresses curriculum content, instructional practices, classroom assessment practices, or extra time, extra help, because we know those are the big things going on in our buildings that need to really be humming right along. Does the root cause data from the SI2 root cause report, the SI2 self-studies, and/or the SI2 council and student body discussion, which you won't have because you're not doing that this year, provide evidence that the root cause exists in the school or community? So when you look at that root cause report and you look at those self-studies, does that provide the evidence? And there again, you want to have the evidence that shows that it's really going on.
I'm just going to mention here that Tina gives great advice on root causes because she knows that when she's looking at your root causes, they're going to be the building blocks for the interventions that you put in place next year. And so if you see meets criteria, see comments, be sure to read those comments. If you see needs revision, pour over those comments because she's going to have good advice to help you hone in those root causes so that they can lead you to good interventions. So this is one of those times when her expertise is just invaluable to our schools. I'm putting in a plug in for that. Okay, and let me show you, I want to go over the online system. First, I want to show you if your SMART goals have not yet been approved, you're going to see some orange on your page. And that means that your root causes, you can't possibly work on root causes until your SMART goals are set. So when your SMART goals meet criteria, then you're going to be able to access your root causes. So don't be alarmed. Just go back and work on those SMART goals. Let me switch over to. Please forget to do that. Okay. So on the process page, this is our demo school. Going over the steps for this month, we have participate in the steering team webinar. We're doing that right now. Review the SMART goals, and then prepare individually for the steering team meeting. And so this has your help sheet linked. Oh, I bet I got logged out. Let me log back in. Yep, that's what happened. Okay, so now in step 3, we're preparing for our individual steering team meeting, or I'm sorry, preparing individually for the steering team meeting. The help sheet is here. And so that lists my school's SMART goals. When you have your SMART goals, it'll list yours. And then it has the possible root causes and the root cause evidence. So obviously you're going to need several of these per person. So make some copies. And then in the same row, in your preparation, we have the print report, and I'm going to open that in a new tab. Since you're first year schools, you're only going to have 1 year of data in the online system. In step 2, you can select your grades, and most of the time, you're going to use all grades. If you have SMART goals that are really focused on one grade in particular, then you might be narrowing down your report to a specific grade level. In step 3, include root cause questions. There are times when you're doing this that you might not want to share the root cause questions with everyone down the road. However, for the purpose of this meeting, you definitely want to make sure you've selected yes. So that's the default. And then in step 4, you're going to choose your report. If you're going to work off paper and you're printing everything out, you're going to want to use the all questions row. It'll just save you time down the road. We have our grade level drill down. Let me show you. Oops, that was the wrong thing. Let me do that. Okay. So we have our grade level drill down. And I just want to show you a little bit on this report. If you don't have responses from a grade, that is probably because that grade was not asked the question. So my teacher gives tests at least once each marking period that cover the state standards. We only ask that of grades 3, 4, and 5. And then you'll see, on this report, yeah, that first report doesn't have any questions for K through 2. And then down below at the bottom of the report, that's where we have the short answer questions. So that's our grade level drill down. And then depending on the student groups and your SMART goals, you might be looking at, for example, the lunch program status report. And that's going to show the survey questions with answers broken down by students who are on free or reduced lunch or students who are on paid lunch. And again, your short answer questions at the bottom. Okay, so those are that's how you run your reports. And so you print those out and prepare individually for your meeting. And then the tools we have for your root causes for the discussion, that's really the Instagraph, because you're going to bring your help sheet and your reports with you to the meeting. So you'll just download, it's a Word document, and you'll be able to blow those up as posters. If you have Kinko's in your area, we know that Kinko's can do that. Some of our schools have poster printers. You can work off of small sheets, but and that's probably if you can't get access to posters, or there's no budget for printing posters. You can work off just regular size paper. It's just a little harder as a group to do that, but it's completely possible, of course. So now we want to look at entering your root causes. Once you've had your preparation and your discussion, and you've decided what your root causes are, you'll go to the entry page, and my school has several SMART goals listed, and then at the very top, general root causes that affect all SMART goals. But I don't have any root causes yet, so I'm going to add a root cause, and we are concerned that attendance is low for a, and our evidence for this, 30% of students miss 10 or more days per year. And does this root cause affect some students more than others? If I say yes, I'll look at, so for instance, if my evidence had to do with students on the lunch program, or a certain grade level, or even if my evidence didn't, but I know that, well, actually, yes, I should know from my evidence that this root cause affects some students more than others, then I select yes, and I identify those groups. And this is an important step. You want to make sure that, you know, if I had said 30% of lunch program students miss 10 or more days a year, then I would come down and click on free reduced lunch. If I'm really talking about all students, then I'm going to select no, and those questions go away. So which SMART goal does this root cause significantly affect? In this case, this is a general root cause that affects all SMART goals. So because it is very general, I've identified attendance is low. I'm not talking about a specific student group. I'm not talking about a specific course or a specific standard or specific kind of lesson. So this is a general. I save that. Now I have under general root causes, I have attendance is low. If I need to edit that, say I don't like that I used a lowercase a, I can do that, save, and I come back and my change is made. I can also delete it. If we discuss later and decide that this was not appropriate, or we have too many root causes, or for whatever reason we need to delete it, you just hit the delete button there. So if I wanted to add a root cause, and let's say that this is specific to a couple of grades and lunch program, and that it's also then specific to, we need to uncheck general and check with the, I'm going to check the SMART goal that this significantly affects, and I can check more than one if that's the case. Click save, and now that root cause appears under both of my SMART goals. You definitely want to be careful when you're entering SMART goals. You don't want to duplicate and have a SMART goal entered twice. But if you use those check boxes, if it applies to more than one SMART goal, you just check those off. Okay. So you'll build your SMART goals as you enter them, working off of your Instagraph and your help sheets. then you can, you'll see this fill in, and you want to make sure that all of your SMART goals are addressed by at least one root cause. Any questions about root causes and entering them?
Seeing none.
Okay. So then in step 5, you also have your report, which shows each SMART goal and then the root causes that were associated with it, and your submit button. So when that's ready to go, you'll submit it. And we also have the rubric criteria, as always, in your last step. Be sure to look that over before you submit. Put that against your report and see if you need to make any changes before you submit it to Tina. And that's it for online entry. There's not a lot of steps in this, but it is a big, weighty discussion. So be sure to give yourselves some time for that individual preparation, and then plan a good steering team meeting to discuss those things. Again, this is an important step because it is the basis for your next step, which is identifying your interventions.
And if this is clear as mud, always know that you can always call, and we'll slog through it together. It really shouldn't be too bad. I know this has been pretty lengthy, but we've tried to just really get it broken down into minute little steps to make it a little bit easier along the way. And really, the whole idea of it is just it's asking what the heck's going on. And you're looking at the data, you're wondering why that data is like it is. And that's the key thing, is because too many times you look at data and then you say, well, let's just try this. And you never look at why. And so that's the whole purpose of this root cause. So in a nutshell, it's the why. And so if you kind of keep that in mind as you have your discussions and everything, you should be fine. But if not, remember, you can always give me a call, send me an email. I'll be here till 8 tonight if you want to ask any questions. So we're good.
I'll even mention that Tina's been known to get into your data reports with you or with schools and talk about things. If there are questions about, is this something we should be concerned about, or we're not sure what to make of this data. She knows these things inside and out, and she has a lot of experience. So, please give her a call, set up a steering team conference call, whatever you need. We're here to help.
And I actually like doing this, so
yeah,
we won't discuss the why of that, but yeah, this is fun for me. So feel free anytime. That'd be great.
I was Tina's school support specialist when her group did this, and she was like a kid in a candy store because we gave her data. So this goes back years. All right. Well, good luck to you all, and thank you so much for attending the webinar, and we'll talk to you soon.
Everybody take care.